The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
It's Thursday, January 18th, Friday, January 19th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night, as I am your host, Dave Scott, live in the Great White North, in the Caribou region on top of the mountains of snowy and central British Columbia at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 a night strong on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Now, we're going to get a little fun here because we are live on Periscope. We are on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. You can also Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with us. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows from iTunes. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, we have a GoFundMe account going on right now. What you want to do is go to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night, where we are collecting money and trying to build up a brand new studio here, and we're getting some things done. We got terrestrial stations waiting to pick us up. We need your help. So GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. Now, if you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, you can read up on the Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. And you can also check my latest blog there as well. You got great videos from Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. The third Thursday of the month, Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet News joins us to talk about all the things that are alternative, that are happening now from and a media standpoint, from the alternative side. A connected individual, Jamie presses his sources for the truth behind the mainstream stories that make the press. Tonight, we are going to get into a few topics that need some answers. Recently, a scare in Hawaii had every person on the islands scrambling when someone accidentally sent over a ballistic missile text message. Was it a hoax? It happened in Japan as well. We're also going to delve into the privacy of disclosure as more information comes out about possible involvement from billionaire Robert Bigelow. And in hour 3, we are going to get into Islamophobia. Now, some people may be a little uncomfortable with that, but we have to wonder, has it gone too far after a serious situation out of Toronto, Ontario? Jamie Sexton from Rebel Planet. I know we've been having some Skype issues. Are we here now? Because I'm hearing you. I don't know.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now, buddy. We got you now. Don't know what... I don't know. Maybe that's Mom's cooking kicking in there, man. That plugging up your ears there. How you been doing?
I've been doing good, man. Yeah, we have a little bit of a lag here, but we'll try to work around it as far as the audio goes.
All right. Excellent. So it's been a busy month. We've had a turn in the year, and 2018 has already seen some weird and strange things happening in the alternative news. So before we get started, how was your new year, and what have you been up to since we last talked to you right before Christmas?
You there?
Yeah, we're hearing you, buddy. Can you still hear us? Because otherwise I'm going to have to call you on your cell phone.
Hello. You there? I got you back.
All right. If you got us, the question that I was asking, we've already, if you're hearing me okay, because otherwise we're going to have to switch over to your cell phone here. Okay, what we're going to have to do here is just keep monitoring this. So if you can just type the phone number into Facebook onto which one I can call here, because my phone right now is on Periscope, so I can't go into my directory to get you there.
Okay.
All right.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. All right. We're going to continue on here, Jamie. And, you know, the minor complexities of online radio, but that's okay. We're going for it now. Jamie, it's been an interesting start to the year. How is your new year in 2018 starting out?
Great. I couldn't be better, to be honest with you. It's going great. How's yours, Dave?
It's going all right, man. You know, we're growing, we're getting bigger, we're getting better. We've got some exciting things coming up here in the next little bit, as you know, because I talk quite a bit with you. And so you know the progress that we are making behind the scenes here of SOR. But, I mean, you know what? The show must go on. So even though we're working about 12 hours a day on this show, trying to get everything lined up, it just seems like every time you think you can take a rest, something more has to be done. And when you're a one-man show, it's the way it kind of works out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do. I know all too well. Trying to juggle a million things over here myself, trying to get Rebel Planet going.
When you, let's learn a little bit about you for our new listeners coming into 2018, because we have a bunch of new listeners now with Periscope and in our other markets. Jamie, how did you get attracted to the alternative side of news?
As we've discussed before, it started way back in the day where I had a friend who turned me on to some, basically some questions about religion and different aspects of things that were going on in the world, just basic questions. And he had some theories. So basically I got curious about it. And at first I thought, this is just conspiracy theory stuff. There's nothing to it. But the more I dug into it, the more I found a lot of it was, actually legitimate. And so I just kept digging around and realized that, all over the map, any sort of institutionalized facet of our society usually has a whole lot of skeletons in it. And it's fascinating to try to uncover all those skeletons.
It is very hard and very difficult for a lot of people, Jamie, to comprehend the story behind the story. But why do you feel that it's important to tell the entirety of what is going on and not just what is released to the mainstream media?
Yeah. I missed the last part of that. I'm sorry.
We're still cutting out a little bit. But what I was asking was, why is it so important to bring in the entire alternative? Yeah, the entire alternative side to the story rather than just the clippings that the mainstream media gives us.
With us most of the time, there are only a few outlets, and unfortunately they don't shoot straight with us a lot of the times. Not only that, but they sort of all read from the same script. So if you pay attention to that and flip from channel to channel on all the mainstream news channels, you'll notice that you could just splice everything that they say together and it looked like one big long report. And that's because generally they get all of their feed from AP, Associated Press. So I think alternative news, while we all run the risk of things not being accurate on that front as well, at least there's more hands in the stew. More people out there digging things up. So that's always a good thing.
Recently, we had some very big news come out of Hawaii. And we're going to start with that tonight, Jamie, because I think it's important that we get into that. But in Hawaii a week ago, there was a very ominous text message which seemed to be just sent to people who were iPhone users, where it basically read, "Incoming ballistic missile. This is not a test. Basically, leave where you are and find shelter somewhere." That's a dangerous precedence when that happens.
Yeah, that's scary. It really is. It's frightening that this day that something like that could happen. It makes you wonder if there was some other thing involved.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Jamie, our signal is not very good on Skype tonight. It is not very good. Can you pass me a phone number on Facebook here that I can reach you at? Because we're only getting about every second word and everything keeps cutting out on Skype.
Yeah, you bet. Give me 1 second. I'll hook that up for you.
All right, buddy. Jamie Sexton from Rebel Planet News is joining us. We're just having a little bit of technical issues with Skype, so if you could just bear with me, and we are going to get a better connection here. I'm just waiting for Jamie to type on in here his cell phone number. All right, we're going to try this. He made some adjustments at home. All right. Jamie, can you hear us okay now?
Yeah, I could.
Okay. All right. Hopefully things will be a little bit better. We'll try this out, and if this part doesn't work, I'll call your cell phone number and continue the interview. So let's get into Hawaii here, all right? And let's get into what happened, because there is a lot of people very much upset about this, especially the citizens, and they have every right to be. What did you find out looking into what happened in Hawaii?
Basically, to be honest with you, there is no official story coming out per se as to how that happened. I've heard some reports that they've sort of identified someone who actually issued the alert, and they're sort of framing it as a mistake, but they're not saying how the mistake was made or what protocols were followed or not followed. They're being tight-lipped about it. But I've heard from other sources who are not necessarily involved in that chain of command, but would have knowledge of how that works, who sort of imply to me that it would almost be impossible to use an official system, which of course they're claiming was used to issue that alert, not only here but also in Japan, which is extremely ironic because those are two completely different systems, two different countries, two different agencies. But the person that I spoke with, who I believe would have some good knowledge about how these things are put together, suggests to me that it was most likely a hack, both on our system as well as the Japanese system. And, I don't want to go too far with the suggestion, but the basic implication is that North Korea may have theoretically been able to hack our system and the Japanese system both, and done that from their end. I don't think our agencies would want to admit that vulnerability in the system. I would venture a guess that neither would the Japanese. But again, that's just a suggestion put forth by someone who I trust on these matters to a great extent.
It caused literally 38 minutes of sheer hell and panic in Hawaii, absolutely everywhere on the highways. And I got these from CNN. These were actual text messages. The text messages read, "Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill." And families started panicking. And it was, "Honey, take shelter. I love you." To, there is an alert system. Where are you guys? And nobody's answering. We're in the bathroom downstairs. We love you. We don't know what's going on, and there's a lot of emotions, and it was very scary for any resident on there, probably more scary than what the majority of us could ever think of, because let's face it, ballistic missiles are the nightmares that keep us awake at night, just in case something, some wingnut like Rocket Man over in North Korea ever did decide to melt down and fire off a missile.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's very frightening, and when I think about a couple of aspects about that particular. The fact that it was Hawaii specifically and Japan, on our soil, on U.S. territory soil, we've only ever been attacked once, and that was by the Japanese, and that was extremely scary. And for them to get a warning like that must have been just extremely frightening. And then Japan actually did, by the hand of the U.S., of course, did have 2 nuclear bombs dropped on them. So, for those 2 particular places to get the warning is extremely must have been extremely difficult for those people to process.
I want to read one quote. This was a lady named Kimberly McMurray, and she actually was breaking down, crying about what was going on here. She says, "We are under immediate missile threat. We are seeking shelter in the basement of a hospital. I'm really scared. I love you guys, and I'll keep you updated the best I can. 4 minutes left. If they launched it, please pray we get inside in time. We're in shelter. I'm shaking. Please pray for my daughter." You know, this is the type of how it affects, because what a lot of these leaders tend to forget, Jamie, is that, regular people like you, like me, like our listeners here, they're the main ones exposed, affected. A lot of political leaders, they have the nuclear fallout shelters that they can go to. Not people, not people like you and I. So, how does the government get away with not answering questions, or not answering questions fully about this topic? Because it's affecting everybody once again.
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, because obviously I can't speak for the construction of their narrative. However, if I were to hypothesize, what they're thinking maybe on the issue is, they may not know. And I think a lot of times when it comes to national security and intelligence and keeping up a good defense, the optics of a good defense, you don't want to admit vulnerability, and especially when it's an unknown vulnerability. In other words, if you don't really know how it happened and you're trying to investigate it, you don't want to, you probably wouldn't want to go out in front of the public and say, we're not sure yet, or there was a hole in the system, and you know what I mean? I think from a PR perspective, because your question is, well, it affects the public and we're scared and this and that. I think, the other side of that coin is, if you were to honestly consider that, from a government's perspective, it may make sense that if you are concerned about panic and you are concerned about fear in the public, you would want to minimize the risk of that fear and panic. And sometimes less information from that perspective is a stronger presentation. It wouldn't sound very strong or very intelligent to come out and say, well, we don't really know how it happened, or we got hacked and that's a vulnerability in our system. I'm speculating on things that may have happened. I'm just suggesting that, that may be a consideration in the presentation, is, sometimes less information, it doesn't open up a weakness from an optical standpoint, if you follow me.
The Hawaii Emergency Management Agency tweeted out 15 minutes later that there was no incoming missile after this hoax was believed to be a hoax. Now, right. One of the things that they did then was it took nearly 40 minutes after the original announcement of the hoax, of the original hoax text message, that they were able to rescind any warning. Why do you think it took so long, Jamie, between the 15-minute mark where they originally said there is no missile coming in, and then another 40 minutes to rescind the original order?
That 40 minutes is protocol. Even if it was a drill, from what I understand, that's protocol. It has to do with a series of checks and balances in the system, as far as chain of command, who issues the statement, and just a whole lot of different aspects as far as protocol goes. And so, it may, from the public's perspective, a lot of times we look at things and we question why things are the way they are. And then when we don't get the full answer, we automatically get suspicious and start filling in our own blanks and all that sort of thing. my best guess is that that is exactly what it was in this case. Is that they have a chain of protocol there before they can actually issue an all clear, even if it was a drill. Because I know they do that in cases of air raid sirens, nuclear fallout sirens. I used to live very near a nuclear power plant in Glen Rose, Texas. I was, I believe, 6.7 miles was my house from the nuclear plant. And we had drills once a month like clockwork. And, you know, they would sound the sirens, you know, for a certain amount of time, and then a different siren after a different amount of time. And, you know, I asked the engineers about that one time. I said, you know, if this was a real real world scenario, if there really was a nuclear fallout or an attack on, you know, the nuclear power plant, I said, would the sirens be different? And he said, no, they'd be exactly the same. That's the point of the drill. I said, so we would have to wait for all those intermittent signals. And he said, yeah, it's protocol. That's what a drill is for. So I would imagine it works the same way in that case. So.
Do you think, though, with the idea that this was a potential North Korea type hack into the system, that it took the battle of words between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump to a whole new level in the end of this? Because right now they aren't announcing that it was North Korea, but I mean, let's face it, everybody's pointing fingers in that direction.
Yeah, again, there's no confirmation that it is North Korea if in the scenario that that it was a hack. If I had to put forth a hunch, just, you know, from a total outsider's point of view, I would say that probably makes the most sense more than anything, especially when you consider that Japan had the same thing happen. It just, you know, I thought that before the Japan warning, and then after the Japan warning, it just kind of solidified that theory for me a little more. I can't imagine that someone in Japan made the exact same error that we did. It just doesn't, sort of just doesn't add up. My feeling on the escalation of rhetoric between the White House and North Korea is it's unusual from an optic standpoint, from a political standpoint. We're not really used to seeing that kind of trivial confrontation, at least from the U.S. side. We're not really used to seeing that kind of language, but that goes that goes with Donald Trump in general. He just sort of colors outside the lines and speaks in a different political tone than other, you know, presidents before him. So that in itself is not unusual. From North Korea, the language actually is not unusual at all. Although not published very widely, North Korea constantly makes very casual, threatening remarks towards the U.S. They're just not always published to the public, and they're not always, you know, trivialized and sensationalized. But from their point of view, that's just kind of their modus operandi. And my feeling on that is although it may not look as polished as we're used to politically on the U.S. side, I don't personally, you know, studying these things and paying attention to these things over the years, I don't really see any more of an escalation or a danger because of the rhetoric. You know, a lot of people like to insinuate that, oh my gosh, you know, President Trump shouldn't be saying these things because if he does, you know, he's gonna compel North Korea to do this, that, or the other thing. I don't buy into that at all. You know, say what you will about the presentation. That's open to criticism all day long. But as far as raising the threat level or compelling North Korea to do anything that they wouldn't do otherwise, that's a stretch for me. North Korea has been saber rattling for decades, and it doesn't matter who's in office or what they say or what they don't say. North Korea's tone really hasn't changed one single bit just because of Donald Trump or Barack Obama or anybody else. So I got my eye on different maneuvers from them. I think the rocket launches that they've been threatening and testing and doing and those kinds of things, I do see as an escalation of concern. But I don't think that has one single thing to do with what the White House or Washington or anybody else is saying, to be honest with you.
Now, in Hawaii, they are saying, your sources are saying there was a hack, and they are saying over there that there was a 10-year employee at the emergency management office that accidentally hit the button to this. Do you think that's a cover-up then?
Well, as I suggested when I mentioned that earlier, I'm not saying that is what happened. I'm saying that theory has been put forth by someone that I trust in a similar agency that would probably have a really good idea of how these types of things work, because within his branch of the government, they also have a series of protocols for other defense systems and warnings and things. So he was my best source to kind of cross-check, if this sounded like a procedural error or something else. And he sort of wasted no time in suggesting to me that he thought his best guess is that it would be a hack. And that just rings very, plausible to me. It doesn't seem very plausible to me that a 10-year employee who is trained in something so vital and so important can accidentally, quote unquote, hit a button. None of those types of systems, whether they're weapon systems, warning systems, instructional systems, or anything else, if there's anything you can say about the government, they are redundant. All systems are very, very redundant, especially when you're talking about weapon systems, warning systems, all those types of things. It's not like some Yahoo just accidentally set his coffee down on the wrong button and oops, and then some other Yahoo in Japan accidentally sat down his tea on another button. Does that make sense to you? I don't know. To me it doesn't.
We have the gentleman coming out and saying that mistakes were made in this, and I could see where they would cover up for a 10-year employee and reassign him to a different position because obviously he screwed up badly. If we stick with the official story. But I guess what I'm looking at here, without trying to put my tinfoil hat on, what would this employee be doing in that section, of his computer program or whatever, unless he was running through a daily drill and maybe it was test and accidentally hit the wrong button. I guess that's what I'm saying. It could have been something that simple.
Well, that is a plausible theory as well, if you were to consider that it was a drill that went bad, or let's hypothesize for a moment, if we want to give someone the benefit of the doubt and sort of lend credence to the official narrative, which they haven't said it this way, but I would suggest perhaps what if they were running through some drill language and this and that. I can see how a technical error could be made in a certain circumstance. I find it really difficult to believe that a lone 10-year employee accidentally issued an alert like that by himself, because again, those types of things generally have very redundant processes. In other words, it wouldn't even be a matter of I'm going to hypothesize just to kind of put a scenario out there. You ever watch the movie War Games?
Yes, I did.
And the big war room where everybody's sitting at a computer and they've all been delegated a different task of this, that, and the other thing. But so there's a few officers, including the general in the room. And if you watch, the way that they issue commands, it usually starts with one guy, goes down to another guy, goes down to another guy, and it's all checked and balanced. And that really is a very accurate picture of how things happen when it comes to those kinds of systems. There's not some guy on his laptop, screwing around with a ham sandwich in one hand and a laptop on the other, and then oh no, I accidentally sent out a nuclear missile warning. I just really find that incredibly difficult to believe. I would find it, from my own perspective, I would find it much easier to believe that the government would say, well, we've got to have a story for the public, so let's say this, and they're covering up for a vulnerability in the system. Which you wouldn't want to say. You never want to admit your vulnerabilities. That's just something that most military and security agencies aren't very fond of doing. They may acknowledge it. They may handle it internally. They may shore up and strengthen those vulnerabilities behind the scenes, but they don't like to admit those vulnerabilities publicly, especially when they're still under investigation. So that, again, if I'm following my best hunch, I find it very difficult to believe the official narrative on this one, but rightfully so,
Hypothetically speaking, okay, and I'm going to take a comment from Joe here in the SOR Space Travelers Club, and Joe's like you. He's got really nice hair, very nice hair, and he says maybe a missile was launched and the U.S. took it out with some secret technology that they don't want anybody to know that we have. So they had to blame the employee instead of letting everybody know about their secret super missile killer technology. Could that have been possible?
Well, anything is possible in the world of hypothetical, I suppose. My guess would be that would not take place, especially if we were on the successful side of defeating a launched missile. Number one, if we are talking about official protocol from the government and there actually was a missile launched towards U.S. territories, it would be not only against protocol but against the law for the government not to advise the public of that. So I doubt that they would not. I don't think. I wouldn't guess they would do that. And again, if we were on the successful side of stopping by any technology, archaic or some futuristic thing, I don't think we would miss an opportunity, especially this government right now, to brag about that. So I wouldn't guess that's what's going on. My guess is there was no missile launch. There was no real threat of a missile launch. If you look at North Korea's history, they like to intimidate. They like to saber rattle. And so it would make perfect sense to me that they may want to hack our system and terrorize the population with that kind of a warning. It would be part of their MO, part of their tactic, the way they do things.
I can see that, but then what led to what happened in Japan? Because a few days later, to me, normally I could see this as a snafu. I have no problem looking at this at an employee snafu, but to me, it's all too coincidental when just a couple days later, it happens in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to me, that was sort of the, from my perspective, that sort of solidified for me that it wasn't some sort of personnel error within our system. I think that, you look at the odds of someone on our side making such an error, and against all the checks and balances and protocol and everything, look at those odds, and they're pretty staggering themselves. And then the odds that would happen in Japan, and then the odds that would happen in Japan just days following, the odds pretty much start to stack up against the notion that it was some sort of employee or personnel error. I have a tough time believing that. I have a much easier time sort of framing up the idea that it was a hack meant to terrorize both territories, both nations.
Well, to have a Japanese public broadcaster say they made a mistake in issuing the alert, you just don't issue those. There is protocol in issuing any type of alert like that.
Absolutely.
And this is the problem I'm having. And as someone who tries to take the full story and look at everything before coming to an opinion, I don't know if 2 + 2 is equaling 4 here, even if I take off my tinfoil hat.
Well, there was one other detail that my source indicated to me about those particular messages. Because remember, they were sent out by text message. Not only were they sent out by text message, but they were not sent out. There's a couple of things he said. They wouldn't, a warning like that would not be limited to text message because everybody doesn't have text message, for one. If it were an official warning, it would have also electronically triggered a radio alert, a siren alert, and everything else. And we know that on Hawaii, the only sirens that went off were manually triggered after the text alert. So there were a lot of the mechanical and technical features that would normally, from my source, what he suggests, that would normally also be going off, that didn't go off. So that sort of indicated to him as well that it was not, it did not come through our technical end of process. And the other thing is that he said there was no timestamp on the text, and he said that generally, at least in his agency, any alert that would go out in the form of text or a fax or any teletype message would be preceded by the issuing agency. In other words, it would say what agency it's coming from, and it would give you a date and a timestamp of that alert. And that message did not contain that. So to him, he suggests it did not look like it even came from one of our official agencies to begin with because of a couple of technical reasons. So...
And that makes sense. I mean, just looking at the Japanese story and researching it before the show, I mean, to send it out on a text message, that goes absolutely viral within a couple of seconds, it gets a little redundant. Not redundant, I apologize for using that word, but it gets a little ridiculous when, it comes so shortly after Japan, and just as government officials from both United States and Canada were about to meet in Vancouver to talk about the crisis of the Korean Peninsula. So, I mean, it just seems like there was a lot of things tied into this, and for everything to just kind of happen at once, it just seems a little odd, especially now when you throw in the fact that North Korea had pretty much called an armistice for a little while until after the Winter Olympic Games in South Korea.
Right. Yeah, a lot of bizarre, things sort of, in the wash become indicative of the larger picture. So I agree with you on that.
So what do you think happens from here now when we have two alerts from two allies on the Pacific Rim with this happening? Do you think the entire process in both countries gets shifted now?
Well, I would say, from my perspective, what I would do, even if the government doesn't want, I'll just take our government, for example, even if our government doesn't want to change its narrative on how it happened, that's fine. I'm not really that concerned about that. As long as whatever the problem was, I want them to fix it, obviously. If it was a hack, they need to make sure that doesn't happen again. And if it was a personnel error, then they need to make sure that doesn't happen again. So whatever they need to do to fix it, I'm not too really concerned necessarily. At this point, I'm not terribly concerned about how it happened. I'm concerned that it doesn't happen again. But more than that, with respect to this particular warning that was already put out, I think that we need another press conference from whatever agency is in charge. And they need to come out and make the public feel more confident that this is not going to happen again. And they need to sort of address what I just brought up, that if this had been an official warning, you would see this, that, and the other thing. In other words, we need more indicators in a warning than just a mass text that's vague. We don't know what agency it came from. It's not time-stamped. And there needs to be more information and more follow-up information in the event of a real crisis. I think that they would be remiss if they don't take those steps to come out and make the public feel more comfortable about the whole process. If they just leave it like it is, we run the risk in the future of people not taking another warning seriously if it were real. You know what I'm saying? If the people of Hawaii got another text exactly like they got next week, half of them probably wouldn't take it seriously, and what if it were a real event? So they need to address that, and because that, to me, that's a legitimate concern, more necessarily than how this happened per se. On the other hand, if North Korea hypothetically did, if they actually did hack our system, we would want to get to the bottom of that and decide if any action needs to be taken because of it, or what steps need to be done, of course, to prevent that. But so yeah, I think there's more to be done from a public relations standpoint on this particular warning, and in terms of how we're going to adjust the system and for people in the future, so they'll know for sure that it's coming from the correct agency, et cetera, et cetera.
Question from Twitter from Quantes. Jamie, do you know what was gained from this incident or who benefited?
Well, again, that would depend on the origin of the incident. If it were a faux pas, if it were a personnel error, nobody gained from it. I'm sure North Korea would get a chuckle either way. But if it was North Korea who hacked our system and Japan's system, they would gain the benefit of being able to intimidate, our nation, and intimidate Japan, which, in the larger scheme of things is kind of trivial. But again, as I brought up earlier, I've been following the North Korea issue for decades, and that's kind of their MO. They get off on cheap thrills. I mean, the leaders of North Korea are extremely childish and trivial, and they're very odd people, and they do very odd things for optics. And they do a whole lot of saber rattling and threatening, and if they were able to at a larger capacity, they would intimidate more. But they're not very intimidating, to be honest with you. The closer they get to actually having a nuclear weapon and facilitating that weapon to be able to reach other nations, well, the more threatening they do get. So I wouldn't say that North Korea is not a serious threat. They are in the long run, and especially if we don't really get some of the other players involved, especially some of our eastern neighbors like China and Russia, to really lean on them a little heavier than they have been. But as far as this particular incident, if anybody got anything out of it, I would say that North Korea probably enjoyed whatever intimidation factor it served for the U.S. and for Japan.
Question coming from our Spreaker chat room, and this one is coming from Tripp, who is asking, when do you think President Trump found out? Because it was very quick. He was still outside on the golf course playing.
Well, being the president, there are handlers within feet of him no matter where he goes on the planet. And they get in their ear, they would get a warning like that immediately. So I'm sure he found out within 30 to 60 seconds.
But I mean, that should have been, even if it was in Hawaii, that should have been, clue number one, that there wasn't a missile coming in, because even though he was on the East Coast, they still would have rushed him to security just in case.
No, not necessarily. There are a lot of protocols and weird things about how that sort of thing works that may not necessarily make sense from our standpoint. And we really don't know exactly what happened, the exact moments that he got the warning. I mean, we don't have an official story about that. People are hypothesizing, well, he was playing golf and, took it lightly and kept playing golf. That's not really the way our system works. And it really wouldn't be up to Donald Trump to make that decision anyway. Anytime there's a national security threat of that level, there are agencies that are tasked with protecting certain level politicians, whether those certain level politicians desire to be protected or not. So even that has a whole chain of protocol. If you remember 9/11, when George Bush, President Bush, got he was talking to a group of kindergartners in a reading class when he first found out about the towers falling, and he stayed put, and he got criticized quite a bit for staying put. But there's a reason why he did that. Like I said, there's part of these protocols that the public doesn't necessarily understand, but they're in place for a reason. But I'm sure that anybody that needed to know about that warning was alerted immediately.
We have about a minute left in regards to our first hour being said and done. Jamie, what do you think the fallout is on this quickly? Is it tighter security measures on how the warnings go out in the United States? Is that number one? Is that key?
I think so. I think that it would be responsible for the issuing agencies of these warnings to review their protocol for issuing these warnings, and once they establish that protocol, and I think some changes probably need to be made in that area. I think they also need to have another press conference and really lay that out for the public so that we have a good understanding of that. I think that would be the responsible thing to do, and I think that's where we would go from here in regards to the warning that they're attributing to a personnel error.
Excellent. We are with Jamie Sexton tonight on Spaced Out Radio. The Rebel Planet comes on this show the third Thursday of every month. Jamie's next appearance will be Thursday, February 15th. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We're going to be back more with the Rebel Planet and Jamie Sexton right after this on the mighty SOR.
Hey, space travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at SpacedOutRadio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at SpacedOutRadio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At SpaceOutRadio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to SpaceOutRadio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, This is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our Advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we're going to do open lines all night. I get people bugging me about open lines. When are you going to do a full show of open lines? Tomorrow, you are the guests. I may be joined by one or two people, and we're just going to BS our way through some topics, but we're going to open up the lines to you. 3 hours of open lines starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Any topic you want to talk about, we'll get to it tomorrow night on SOR. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio, out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Cephology. Cephology is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are live on Periscope TV. So all you do is go into the search button, type in Spaced Out Radio, pops up right there at the beginning. Now, we're also on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and we'd love to have you subscribe there. We're also on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. You can also read up on the encounter online or watch great videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV and so much more at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, as we do the third Thursday of every month, we bring in Jamie Sexton from Rebel Planet News, Rebel Planet, a monthly feature on this show. Jamie, welcome back.
Yes, sir. Good to be here.
All right. I know you've been studying up recently on a lot of the UFO news that has popped up ever since the New York Times article came into play here. However,
Yes,
there is a big issue that a lot of people, myself included, are very concerned about, and it revolves around a billionaire named Robert Bigelow. And I know when you were in Las Vegas, living there, you're now down in San Antonio, Texas, you know, the name Bigelow was synonymous with real estate and his aerospace companies. And I'm curious, because Bigelow, in the notes that have come forward since then, seemed to be involved during that same time when the UFO phenomena was being watched by the Pentagon, seemed to be buying into MUFON, buying up a lot of UFO information sites, getting private information from everyday citizens about their experiences.
Right.
My question about this to you is the privacy issue that comes into play here, because a lot of these sites stated that your information was confidential, yet if Bigelow was getting a hold of it, him being a government contractor in black projects, which we know about, does that take the privacy issue out of it?
Well, no. What you mean? What, from a government perspective? Is that what you're suggesting?
What I'm suggesting here is it possible, because Bigelow has a very high interest in topics such as UFOs and alien abductions, could it be possible that that information that he bought into then made its way into the government?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. I believe so. But that wouldn't make it public information. If that's what you're suggesting. I mean, if he got into bed with the government, which actually he has on some of these projects, he would have to, you can't really, nobody can really, even privately funded people who dabble in aerospace and things like that, can't just develop their own aerospace company without working with the government to some capacity, because of air rights and space rights and all those different things. You have to at least follow some of their systems to be able to do that.
And I understand that. He is very tied to the United States government. Everybody knows that. It is very public knowledge, and especially coming out with, the fact that after Bob Lazar had come out on Area 51 and went public with that and his work there, it has come out not only through the media but through the public and MUFON that he and Lazar had purchased or started their own company to investigate Element 115, which to me gives a lot of credence and credibility to the fact that Lazar's story about working at Area 51 was quite real. Now, of course, we fast forward to 2007 to 2012, where Bigelow was known to be buying up domain names and UFO sites for their information. I'm curious, because he's a private contractor, we'll never find out, but I'm curious to see what he wanted with all that information. Now, I'm not saying he's going to take it public, but privately, what did he do with that information? Or what do you suspect he did?
Well, my curiosity into that sort of thing, especially with Bigelow, only took me so far. He's a very eccentric person, he was that way even before this. He got into the aerospace thing, even with his, I believe it. What's his chain of hotels and real estate? Isn't it Budget Suites?
Something like that. Yeah,
I think it's. I think he owns Budget Suites. He was kind of I don't want to call him an oddball per se, but he's a very, very, he's a character. So, and he made a lot of moves when he was buying up real estate and doing a lot of deals that people questioned. In the end, he's been very successful with that. So he probably knows more about what he's doing than we would know. I don't know why. I don't know what buying up those domains, and I am aware that he did that, but I don't know what that would accomplish. What do you think? I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, that's the big one, because here's the thing. With him being a private contractor, it doesn't have to become public. Even if you write a FOIA request, it's never going to come out because he is privately owned and operated. The big thing that I am going to say about this is I don't know what he's doing, because when you file out, Jamie, or fill out one of those reports for a UFO, they usually ask for your name, the town you're in, if not your address, your phone number, your email address, and exactly what you saw. And the way I look at it, Bigelow was known to, and we have proof that he's even bought into and owns Canadian websites dealing with UFOs that were previously owned by a gentleman named Brian Vike, who lives about 6 hours north of where I do. And when I see that happening, I'm thinking, okay, we got a Black Project government contractor who we know owned the Skinwalker Ranch. We know he's a billionaire. We know he's worked with Bob Lazar and George Knapp and other people who are involved in the media. Do I really want him as a Canadian with his U.S. government contacts, especially in the sensitive world of black projects, having my personal information? And when I started asking that question, Jamie, one of the things that came across my mind on this was, okay, I know Canadian people who have been part of my labs, who have been visited by the CIA, who have had Men in Black show up. I thought it was all a big joke, thinking, oh, these people are just experiencing it because, it's the popular thing to do. It's a way to get press. It's a way to be interviewed on radio shows to make their stories sound more believable. But when I find out about Bigelow collecting this information from strangers, from people who are not in the United States, it now makes me wonder what that information is truly being used for, and is that legal?
Well, I'm not quite clear. I know about the domain names. Beyond that, I'm not quite sure to what extent you're referring to as far as the gathering of information. Did he acquire these websites and shut them down, or are they still up and existing? What's the status with that?
The websites that I know that he bought from Brian Vike here in British Columbia are still running.
And are they maintained by the same people that they were being maintained? Has the information changed, or has just the ownership of the domains changed? I'm curious about that, because I did know that he bought up not only those domain names, but he also bought up a string of domains in the U.S. as well. So to that extent, I'm familiar with what you're talking about, but I'm not familiar with the sites themselves, or the content, or the current status of them. What is the current status of these sites? Is the information on them the same as it was?
On the Brian Vike sites, and his most popular site that I've been investigating, Brian Vike had the original reports that he did on there. Those have been taken down. However, what has happened is, if you read in the About Us on the website, it basically thanks Brian Vike for his great contributions to building a credible site, and now this site continues to run under BASS. So all it says is BAASS, which stands for Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Space Systems.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So they are running. They are up and running.
Okay. So basically, he has whoever's doing the web work for him. I doubt he's sitting at a computer doing web work, but whoever's doing that for him is actually, from what you're describing, then taken over the content. It hasn't removed the content, or as you suggest, maybe a little bit of the content, but basically the site exists as it was, and they're controlling now the content of the site. Are they adding to it, or is it just sort of in a stalemate? Because I haven't been to these sites that you're referring to. I'm familiar with the story of him acquiring a whole string of websites related to UFOs and government conspiracies in relation to and all of that. I'm familiar with that, but I haven't followed the sites themselves.
Okay, so what do you think then about a gentleman like Bigelow, with his connections, collecting people's information about their reports?
Well, I don't know. From if I had to just go off of what my limited knowledge of it, in addition to what you're telling me now, it sounds like a marketing thing. That's what I would deduce from it. It more than acquiring information that was already available to the public. In other words, you're suggesting that there was information there that may not be there now, and the information that is there now was there in addition, before. In other words, there's no top secret stuff that he's acquired that the public doesn't already have some footprint of. So if I had to deduce from that, my guess would be that Bigelow is staging some sort of marketing campaign, and his interest in buying up these already established websites would afford him the audience that these sites had already built up. So it seems to me that if you want to acquire an audience with a particular niche, then you're going to provide them something within that particular niche. If he was an author, which he's not, but if he was a science fiction writer, that would make perfect sense, wouldn't it? You buy up all these sites, and then you take the audience that's built up, and you write something, or devise something that appeals to them. But the fact that he actually is involved in aerospace and has a great deal of money in developing some technology in that area, those dots I can't quite put together. I don't know why he's doing that yet. It doesn't necessarily add up to me, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. I couldn't imagine what it'd be yet.
It's disturbing to a lot of people because, especially those in the field of ufology, because there's a lot of people who don't believe the narrative and the message that has come out, Jamie, about the way disclosure happened last month. They do believe that some sort of disclosure did happen and that it's great for the public to be able to get some vindication over what went through, you know, the media, especially the mainstream that has even been talking about it still this month. However, you know, not many people are talking about the privacy information, you know, when the contractor to the United States government, who is named in that New York Times story, continues to collect personal information and personal files from people even outside the United States. This is what isn't what making sense. I mean, if he is said, and Bigelow being he, is said to have some sort of alien-type material at one of his buildings at Las Vegas, and he's being named in the game of this whole disclosure movement, collecting personal information from people, in my mind, is questionable. Why would he do that?
Well, you know, my gut instinct on this tells me that he's doing it for profit. He's a business guy above anything else. That's his history. That's his track record. You know, you could suggest, well, maybe he is a business guy, or he has been a business guy. But yet he has a side passion for aerospace and ufology and these things. Yeah, that's a possibility, but not likely. I would venture a guess that whatever his interests are in the global scheme of things around this entire endeavor with him, it's probably profit oriented. Yes, he was instrumental in leaning on some people and pulling some strings and opening some doors and nudging some things to get that that little bit of disclosure that was brought forth to the public. Yeah, he was very instrumental in that. It's a shame that other people haven't been as engaged and pushed the issue even further. But if I'm reading the writing on the wall with Bigelow, although he may actually serve, you know, the ufology interest to a point, I think his particular interest might be profit oriented. It might be an investment for him in some way. Again, especially if he's buying up websites and avenues, specific niche avenues that he could later hypothetically release some sort of book or film, or, you know, maybe even investment program or anything through those channels. I don't know. That would be my best guess at this point.
This question comes from Eric with a K, and he is asking, do you think Robert Bigelow could also be working with Black Op dollars via Black Op contracts?
Well, again, anything is possible. I haven't necessarily heard anything about that, and you know, I don't know what Black Ops. You know, Black Ops to me is kind of a generic term. You know, obviously, but if you're suggesting perhaps that there's some sort of operation going on behind the scenes, and they're using Bigelow or incorporating Bigelow or working hand in hand with Bigelow in some way to advance their operation, I don't think they'd need Bigelow. You know, it would be the other way around, to be honest with you. And usually the private industry doesn't work very well with government industries unless there's profit on both sides. And so I don't know. Just from the writing on the wall, it just I got a feeling his motivation here is private and probably profit. Not to suggest that he doesn't have some passion or legitimate interest or even legitimate information, something more to bring to the table and to the whole community that would be exciting and beneficial, et cetera, et cetera. I wouldn't suggest that. It's too early to tell. But I think his particular motivating factor is most likely going to be profit for Bigelow.
And I can understand that, but I mean, we're talking about a guy, Jamie, who is a multi-billionaire in real estate and hotels. He doesn't need the money from the government, yet we know that Senator Harry Reid, in 2007, gave him some of that $22 million to investigate this alien material that the government was holding on to. And the reason why they gave it to Bigelow was because that way it would stay out of any money would be staying out of the FOIA requests. All right. And we also know that, during this exact time, he's also buying up all of these website domains and websites, keeping them running to get people to bring their UFO knowledge to him directly, or at least to his Bass group. We also know during that time the FAA, and I got the documentation here that states in the FAA handbook that all UFO reports by pilots should go to groups like Bass, and it provides an email and a 1-800 number for reports from any pilot, civilian, commercial, or military can call to report a sighting. I mean, so this guy, I think, is a little bit more into it than just for profit.
Well, if you follow that language, should go and may call this number, 1-800 number, that's not necessarily a directive. That's a suggestion. It's not really a directive from any particular agency to order anybody to do anything. It's basically, sounds to me like an attempt to centralize information, which other groups have tried to do before. In these matters, which I think is a great idea. I think they should centralize information. One hand needs to talk to the other hand. But, I don't know necessarily that the Harry Reid aspect means that there's some big secret that the government necessarily gave to Bigelow. I know that's the suggestion. And we are aware of the story of quote-unquote alien material that was handed over to Bigelow, but we still don't know what that material was. And my guess is that at some point we might find out that the story of this material may be for sale. You follow me? The story of the material could be for sale. That's one hypothesis. As far as any program or advancement of any program, I don't think that the government, if they were aware of anything of any real significance in ufology, would just hand it over to a private agency. I don't think so. What my reading of this is that when people like Bigelow and other powerful people who have the capacity to grease wheels and shake up politicians and open file cabinets and loosen doors and open safes, if you follow me, in other words, they can make things happen and kind of get into places that the normal person can't, just through power of money and influence and politics. Sometimes things get done, and to that extent, that's great, and that's exciting for people, who are interested in knowing what we're not told. But that doesn't necessarily mean that any great advancements are going to be made. The soft disclosure, as you've described it, I think was really exciting. We really haven't had that kind of disclosure since, well, the 40s, and then they retracted it. So it's been a long time since any reputable or mainstream news agencies or collective news agencies or government agencies has even dared to legitimately offer any kind of disclosure whatsoever in this arena. So that in itself is very encouraging. I think it's way too early to see what's going to happen in the long run as far as Bigelow's endeavors. There's a lot of mystery around it. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that don't necessarily make sense right now. But, from my experience, especially in the U.S., the government wants to control everything that they can. If it's information, they want to control it. If it's money, they want to control it. If it's resources, they want to control it. If it's technology, they want to control it. So my experience with that, and my hunch is that anytime that there are those types of resources that the government has control or possession of, they generally don't just hand those things over to private industry. When they do, it to me, it always indicates that it's less significant to the government rather than more significant to the government. It's not to say that they wouldn't necessarily partner up with some private agencies, like they have with NASA and some other agencies, to get things done. But you can bet that the government would still maintain the bulk of the control over those things, information, resources, material, all that sort of thing. That's just the way the government works, especially here in the U.S.
So in your heart of hearts, with what you know about the way the U.S. government works, what do you think the tie-in between the U.S. government and Bigelow is when it comes to UFOs? I think that if I follow what I've learned so far, if I just watch his interactions that I'm aware of, and you may be more aware of others, but from everything I've gleaned, my conversations with you, the research I've done, what I've seen on the news, etc., what it looks like to me is that he has privatized his own organization. He hasn't really stated his goals with any of his aerospace endeavors. He hasn't. That's kind of a real foggy area so far. So he hasn't really stated his goals. He's also, as we talked about, went out and bought up a bunch of websites, and from what you say, apparently they're under his company's control now, the content, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems like a lot of staging. In other words, a lot of preparation for something. But there hasn't really been, other than the soft disclosure and a few admissions of reputable sources like the military and commercial airlines and things like that have come forward and feel more free to talk about their experiences openly, which lends a lot of credibility to ufology in the community at large, which is great. But other than that, there hasn't really been any significant development or any objectives outlined. So we really don't know what Bigelow is up to. And the government themselves they're not even really taking an official position on this. The tape, the one tape that we saw, the one that keeps getting circulated of the two military pilots who followed the one tic-tac shaped UFO that they flew around and then it took off at a rapid rate of speed. That, to me, is the most significant thing that we've gotten as far as tangible stuff out of this disclosure. For people who are involved in ufology and that sort of thing, that's nothing new to them. Now, it's new that the media is following it. It's new that the media is actually reporting it with somewhat of a serious tone. But as far as seeing footage like that and
following some of their own personal experience and testimony, that's not necessarily new to them. So the only new element that I see out of this whole thing, which is, in my opinion, is very significant, but the only new thing, the only real tangible thing that we've gotten out of this so far is that the mainstream media is lending credence to the story, to the existence of UFOs. In other words, unidentified flying objects. And they're even using language like, extraterrestrials and aliens. We're actually hearing those types of terms and phrases used by the mainstream media. So, that's all exciting and good. But where it goes in the long run and what Bigelow's, particular interaction is with the government and what he's getting from them, I'm a little unclear on that. I think it's all a little bit foggy and sketchy at this point. So it's exciting, and I hope it does go somewhere. And I like the fact that he is putting some money into yet another centralized hub, as you suggest, for people to bring information and share information, and all that information can be gathered in one place and weighed against each other and studied, et cetera, et cetera. I think all of that is very exciting. So I'm not discounting his efforts or his intentions or objectives or anything else. I just think at this point they're very unclear. So
let's turn to the media here for a second in regards to this topic. Are you surprised that many media outlets this far since the New York Times story are still covering this event and still covering UFOs and treating it like a real news subject rather than just this lighthearted fluff that always has the X-Files or Star Trek music in it?
No, I'm not. I mean, I guess I'm surprised on the one hand, but the media has become so trivial. When I say the media, I'm talking about the news media. The mainstream news media, the big alphabet soup, they become very trivial and sensationalized in the things that they report. So in regards to this particular topic, it's not necessarily a surprise to me that they would be willing to do that, because from the sensational standpoint, they're willing to get their hands involved in that sort of thing as long as the ratings are there, as long as people are interested in it. But again, they're kind of kicking around the same old story for weeks now. There's no new story to the story. And if there's not any more story to the story in short order, it'll probably go away and they'll move on to the next sensational thing they want to cover until something develops on this. So that's my read on it.
I was surprised last week that Tucker Carlson on Fox News was still talking about this topic, and that he was still, going large on it. CNN has gone large on this story. Other outlets have. And, whether or not you believe the mainstream media, for so many years, they ridiculed, Jamie, the experiencer, people who were filming videos. They snarked the living hell out of anybody who brought in this strange story. I mean, let's face it, most people out there in the mainstream, who don't believe in this topic, they would basically say, that anybody who believes in that crap is just a lonely hick who lives in the middle of nowhere, missing half their teeth, chewing tobacco, a pound of chewing tobacco every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really ridiculed and patronized people.
You just described half my relatives. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you're right. And that's the part about it that I said sort of lends credence to all of this. And again, that's very encouraging. Like you say, whether you necessarily trust the mainstream media or you think they've gotten soft in their work, or this, that, or the other thing, that's a whole nother matter. You're right. For the longest time, they would scoff at anything to do with this topic. So for them to be able to, with a serious face and a serious tone, lend credence to the story and actually report on it to the extent of which, they have any information is encouraging. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I'd like to see more developments in the story. In other words, whatever's going on, with Bigelow or his agency or whatever's the story behind the story, I would like to see more developments going on and get some more story to this instead of just, like I said, I think that, Tucker Carlson is kicking it around, because people are interested in it. I mean, this is a topic that people are interested in. And, you and I both know that it's not just people that live in the woods and see bright lights in the sky and don't know what they are, or et cetera, et cetera. The body of people who have experienced some degree of personal experiences in ufology or abduction or any of these other things related to this field is not limited to people who live behind the pines, with big imaginations. That for many, many people, this is a very serious topic to them. So when the news starts reporting on it, it may have been more of a surprise to those news agencies than it was to the public that that their ratings actually went up. In other words, because they follow that stuff second by second. They know how many viewers are watching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it may have surprised the news agencies. Oh, wow, people are really interested in this. They want to hear about this, just like any other story. And we all know when it comes to mainstream media, at the end of the day, that's really their primary motivation. Is how many people are interested in this? How many viewers can we get? So if people are taking it seriously and tuning in to get more of the story, they're going to milk it as far as they can, even if there's no more story to the story. So, in the long run, we'll see if there's any more story to the story. If there's not, I anticipate that it will die out as soon as the viewership and people stop tuning into it.
Do you think, though, that the mainstream public, even within your friends, let's take the media side out of it here for a second, Jamie, but do you believe that the mainstream public is starting to take this story seriously as the media is starting to take it seriously?
I don't know. I haven't really, gone out and sampled anybody who has a new opinion on this. Most people that I know in my life, from all walks of life, all social ilks, all levels of academia and professions, et cetera, most people are open-minded people, and I've met very few people in my life who are absolutely closed-minded enough to totally discount the possibility or the existence of UFOs or alien life forms. Most people that I know within my lifetime are somewhat open to it, some degree of receptive to that idea. So I don't necessarily know that anybody on the public side has been changed. Because to be honest with you, we don't have much story than what we've had before. It's just that the mainstream news is actually saying it now. You know what I mean? But growing up, even as a teenager, I remember watching certain programs on TV, and I would see footage very, very similar to what we saw, over the past month or so. Not unlike that at all. Taken by commercial pilots in Mexico. Their military released footage very similar to that years ago. So it's not that shocking to hear these stories. The only thing that's different, as far as I can tell, the only tangible thing that's different is that the mainstream media is reporting on it. So I haven't really noticed that, any minds have necessarily been opened or changed or anything yet. I think that it caught a lot of people's attention. I think a lot of people will go, wow, that's interesting. Wow. Can't believe we're watching this on Fox News. I can't believe CNN actually admitted that. Those are the kind of statements I've heard. Not, oh my God, well, it's got to be real now because, Tucker Carlson said it. I haven't seen any minds change to that degree yet. I mean, I'm sure there are some. I don't think that there's a sweeping eye-opening yet. I think they've got everybody's attention, but again, there needs to be more information to the information. So hopefully hopefully some more information comes forward with people like Bigelow being involved and things being shaken up and people willing to talk about it. So I think that was the whole motivation behind all this, is try to get the, stir the pot up and see what comes out of it. See if we can get some things rattled. You know what I mean? So far that's the encouraging part for me is seeing that start to take place.
And I can see where, there is some positivity in the fact that the mainstream is not letting go of this story. We have said it many a times on this show that in order for the media to take anything like this seriously, they have to give it a run. And I really do believe they are truly giving it a run. That being said, they are also, by what I see, controlling who is speaking about these UFOs, Jamie.
Yeah.
They are controlling, who is talking. We don't see in the media a lot of real UFO researchers, people who have been researching for the public for the last 20, 30, 40 years. People I think of, Richard Dolan, Stanton Friedman, Grant Cameron, Steve Bassett, or Dr. Stephen Greer, who, helped set up disclosure events in Washington, D.C. as far back as 1992. I don't see the media reaching out to these people except for the alternative. The mainstream media, and this is where I get concerned about it, continues to go to Luis Elizondo, who ran the government program from 2007 to 2012. They go to Chris Mellon, who is part of the To the Stars campaign. They go to Leslie Kean, one of the writers of that New York Times article, who happens to have a book that is forwarded by John Podesta, who happens to have Tom DeLonge in her back pocket, who is turning down media requests from non-mainstream outlets like this one, like others that I know. And, I think it's dangerous when the media continues to reach out and almost throw softball questions at these people rather than getting into some tough questions, because a grainy UFO video is just like a grainy Sasquatch video to the people who've really been looking into this topic for the last 20 to 40 years.
Right. But a couple of things that you said there feed right into what I was talking about earlier, which is I mentioned that if the government is involved in anything legitimate, they will control it. They're not going to just hand it over hand and fist to the public. They like to control it. They like to control the real part of it, and they like to control the narrative part about it. So that may be the case here as well. And not only that, but we know that the media is controlled through government entities and corporate entities. So And the other side of that is that some of what you just mentioned is tied into profit, right? Books and handshake deals and who's in whose hip pocket. And so sounds, by your own description there, it sounds like there's a very tight, small community that's kind of locked into this narrative, and they're controlling it. They're not really opening the forum as they would kind of have everyone believe. They're not necessarily really doing that. They would have you believe, but what they're really doing, if you step back and look at what they're really doing, they're just shaking the pot up a whole lot and getting people interested in whatever it is they've got in their hip pocket. They're not really opening the floor to everyone per se. And that sounds to me like one of your frustrations. It doesn't sound like they're really opening it up to people who could lend more to the topic, check and balance some information, et cetera, et cetera. By your own narrative there, it sounds to me like the writing is kind of on the wall that this is I don't want to use the word conspiracy, but sort of a locked community in a way of this disclosure. Who's controlling it? Where does the information go? How much of the information are we really going to share? Who's involved? What guest are we going to have on to talk about it? It sounds very narrow and very limited and very vague to me. So, like I said, in the long run, we're really not going to. Well, right now, we're really not going to know what's going to happen in the long run because nobody's really stated any objectives for anything really. They've just, like I said, like you said, with the grainy video, and like I mentioned earlier, we've seen this before. This isn't anything that we haven't seen before. It's just now they're putting the power of the media behind a very narrow narrative, which is great. It lends some credence to the topic, but ultimately, what have we really learned? Nothing. We haven't really learned anything. There's nothing new being disclosed.
And that is kind of my concern right now, too. And you nailed it right on the head there, is that I'm very concerned with the fact that we have a lot of people out there right now or media outlets right now who are revolving around certain people like they're the only players in the game. There's an entire field of ufologists that have never been, even talked to or invited on programs to discuss it. And I think what's happened, and this is just my theory, Jamie, as we got about 4 minutes here before we got to go to break, but my theory is this. The government planned on this happening and breaking it down the way it did because they knew the mainstream media would be caught off guard. They then released Luis Elizondo to the public to say, okay, you go talk to CNN, you talk to the New York Times, you talk to the Washington Post or Fox News. You do live interviews with them because they were so caught off guard for so many years of treating people like us in the alternative side like we were just a bunch of jokes and we didn't know what we were talking about. Now the story that shows all alternative media on the UFO side is true. And what the mainstream media doesn't go to the alternative. They try and figure it out themselves now because they're scrambling. Therefore, people like Elizondo, Leslie Kane, Chris Mellon are all getting these nice little softball questions that they can hammer out of the park rather than getting some of the tough questions that ufologists have been wanting to know the answers to for years.
Right. Well, I do have an alternative theory to all of this. I know you said we have a limited amount of time before break, so if you want to touch on it in the third hour, we can do that. But I actually meant to mention this earlier, but it's just a theory. It's an idea, but it kind of ties it all together and would make sense with some of the things that we've already covered tonight. So it's up to you if you want to talk about it. I know we wanted to get into some other things, but
well, let's run with it. Let's start it off. We got about 2 minutes here, and then if I got to cut you off, I'll cut you off, and we can continue.
Okay. Well, to lead into it, basically, if I listen to everything that you've said tonight and your take on it, and I know this is one of the things you're very passionate about, and I hear the frustration in your voice about, this issue not being advanced in the way that you feel that it should be advanced. If the true objective is disclosure, if the true objective is to get the truth out, if the true objective is to open the doors and let everybody see everything and share everything, and let's discuss this in an open, honest way, even among the mainstream media, because, like it or not, they do lend some reputable, credibility to things, whether we like them or not. So that's what I hear from you. However, I also hear, and what I see with my own experience and my evaluation of this, is that that's not being done. Whatever is being done with Bigelow and these other players and the media and whatever government may or may not be involved, it all looks very controlled, very limited, very, like you suggest, very, 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 very narrow narrative. Very narrow narrative. Not much has been added to the story over the past few weeks. They're just kind of rehashing it. So if I look at all of that, maybe they're not really interested in full disclosure of anything that's real in the community or to do with ufology. Maybe I considered this yesterday when you told me you wanted to talk about this a little bit. I was thinking about it, and I thought, wouldn't it be an interesting twist if, and that we've been warned about this years and years and years ago, that the government may build up a false narrative of their own of an alien threat. And so while it may look like they're interested in actually disclosing real experiences and real testimony and real information and real evidence, they wouldn't be willing to do that if it wasn't something they couldn't control, which goes back to what I said earlier. The government likes to control things.
Hey, Jamie, I'm going to cut you off right there so we can step out for a break here. Remember that on government control when we come back here on Spaced Out Radio. 2 hours down, 1 hour to go with Jamie Sexton. The Rebel Planet happens the third Thursday of every month here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back with more of the Rebel Planet and Jamie Sexton right after this.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on SpacedOutRadio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you are seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at SpacedOutRadio.com.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we have listened to your requests. We're going to do a full 3-hour show, open lines. We're going to try it out. You guys call in tomorrow night. We'll give you the phone number or the Skype, and then you guys can connect with us. Any topic that you want. I'm going to see if I can get a couple of people in here to hang on out with me, and, we'll come up with the game. You guys come up with the topics, and we will do it tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Open lines at spacedoutradio.com. We want to say hello to everyone watching us live on Periscope. How y'all doing? Don't forget, you can get a Spaced Out Radio t-shirt on our website. We're on Periscope now live every night during this show. We are also live on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on the Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is Cephology. Cephology is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Make sure you've subscribed to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio to connect with us. We are also on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club. For $5 a month, you could rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can pick up a t-shirt like this one that I am wearing right now. You can't see it on Radioland, but if you can, if you're on Periscope, hello, Periscope, as we continue to have fun with that. Also, we have great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and read up on the encounter as well. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. For the final time tonight, we introduce Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet News. Rebel Planet comes on here on this show the third Thursday of every month. Jamie, welcome back.
Da-da-da-da. Thank you. Good to be back.
By the way, you sent me some gifts here during the break, and it tried. I tell you, I really try hard not to laugh during the show, but you got me.
I can to throw you off.
You threw me off. You threw me off. You're a jerk, and thank you for.
And not one gnome in those memes either. Usually there's a gnome involved.
Yeah, you got to mention the gnome. Now Ad Gnome. Used to be Adam, but now we call him Ad Gnome. He's going to go absolutely haywire. Like, yes, they mentioned gnomes on the air. Yes, finally. So...
Gnomes are getting some disclosure. It's great.
Gnome disclosure here on Spaced Out Radio. God, I hate those little bastard things. I really do. So, anyhow, right before the break, we were talking about, disclosure and personal information and whether or not the government and the media have our best interests. You want to continue on where you were left off?
Yeah, I was telling you that it kind of occurred to me that, because of the limited information that's really being disclosed, and by the look of the control around this, remember earlier I suggested, it would make sense if Bigelow was selling something, You know what I mean? Selling the story, or, you know, there's profit involved, or this or that. But, you know, years ago, I think Ronald Reagan said in a speech in front of the UN, what was it he said? That if we were all facing a threat from out of this world. Do you remember how that quote went?
Yeah, basically, imagine how mankind would come together if we were facing a threat from outside of this world.
Right, and I've always thought, and it wasn't an original thought, but I've always believed in this idea that at some point, you know, the government, the U.S. government, or a collection of governments probably would come together and use, if they saw fit to do so, and they could benefit from it in some way, use a fake alien threat, or the possibility of one, to advance some sort of agenda. Now, you don't really even have to be specific about what that agenda may or may not be. But we do know that governments are very good at creating enemies and then using the fear of that threat, the threat of those enemies, to advance some alternative objective. And I always thought, well, they've done it to some extent, you know, with terrorism. They did it, you know, in several wars. They've done it in the financial market. You know, they've done a lot of things to create fear in the public. Because anytime you have that kind of, you know, whenever time you have mass fear or mass hysteria or concern like that, it creates a flux. It creates a flux amongst the population. And you can, whenever there's a flux or there's something in movement, you can make things happen. So I wouldn't put it beyond the realm of possibility that at some stage of the game, somewhere, either the government or governments, plural, or governments in conjunction with some private industries may attempt to create a threat, whether it be real or exaggerated or completely fabricated, of UFOs or an alien threat to achieve an alternate objective. And so I know this is not, I'm not suggesting that's what's happening, but you know, whenever there's something like this that comes forward, and there's not really a clear picture for why this is being disclosed. There's not really a clear picture of any of the objectives to this. And as you suggested earlier, there's a lot of really tight control over this whole narrative. And so, you know, maybe they're just in the early stages of creating some legitimacy in the public mental about this. You know, maybe they're in the very early stages of convincing the public that, oh, well, maybe there really is something out there. Because at some stage of the game later on, if they keep doing that in subtle ways, they could use that to their advantage. And so I bring that up because, you know, people like who are very motivated by what you do and your interests are legitimate. You would like to see the community actually share information. You would like to see agencies that may have information actually disclose more information. And, you know, you would like to see this entire arena opened up and fueled and real disclosure. And if there's anything to be disclosed, I support that 100%. I agree with you. But it doesn't look like that's what's happening, at least of yet. And that's got to be very frustrating for people who really do want that. So if they're not really making an effort in the long run, if all of this disclosure or soft disclosure doesn't really lead to that, then maybe there's another reason why they're doing what they're doing, is what I'm suggesting.
I've been asked by a couple people on Periscope suggesting that I need a monkey to be hanging out around the studio while I'm broadcasting. Can I borrow Spike?
You could borrow Spike, yes. Yeah, anytime. I never thought of that, but we should probably bring Spike on. He'd love it.
So for those of you who don't know, Jamie actually has a monkey named Spike. So what kind of monkey is Spike?
He's a capuchin monkey. Some people say capuchin, tomato. He's a capuchin monkey. They're indigenous to South America, around Argentina. They're a New World monkey, so they're very small. When he stands straight up and he's fully grown, he's a little over 2 feet tall. Yep.
Now, are you planning on getting Spike a new girlfriend, because you lost his girlfriend a couple of years ago now?
Yeah, sadly we lost Jessica, his mate. So yeah, he keeps reminding me that he needs a new girlfriend. He keeps trying to steal all of mine. So I'm gonna have to do something about that and hook him up with some monkey tail. I'll probably get on that early summer. Start looking up monkey dating sites for him.
Well, there's got to be a monkey Tinder or monkey Plenty of Fish, Plenty of Monkeys or something.
Plenty of Bananas, yeah, probably.
Excellent. So we're going to create a new website, Plenty of Bananas, for anybody who has a single monkey who is lonely and needs affection. Spike is going to be the guard monkey of the site.
Yeah, he'll be the single bachelor.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly. We'll put his picture on there. So yes, we somehow have to figure out how to do a show one time with Spike hanging out in the background. That would be actually kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's make it happen.
All right. I want to get to something a little bit more serious here, Jamie, because we don't really talk a lot of politics on Spaced Out Radio, but this is one that I think we need to touch on. So I do want to tell our viewers we are going to get into a little bit of political referencing here in regards to a false Islamophobia claim in Toronto, Ontario, just the other day. Do you want to explain what happened there?
In Toronto, I believe the story, the way it goes is that it wasn't an 11-year-old girl claims that she was attacked by a white male adult. And he ripped off
Asian male.
Okay, and ripped off her hijab. Is that the story? Is that the way it goes?
Well, the story goes like this: is apparently at this elementary school where this 11-year-old goes to school, an Asian man apparently, according to the girl, walked up to her with scissors and cut her hijab off. She was scared. She told officials that this was happening. It sent the Toronto Police Department into a frenzy looking for this man, believing that he was wielding scissors and was going to be attacking Muslims. And then we find out the entire story is fake.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I mean, this is, social hysteria. And when you said we were going to talk politics, we're not really talking politics so much as we're talking sociopolitics. And, there's a lot of social politics going on around the globe these days, all over the place. In the West, in Europe, in the East, it's running rampant. for a variety of reasons, a plethora of reasons. Sensibilities are high. There seems to be a real, nothing really seems stable socially these days. You don't know who you're going to offend. You don't know what to say. All sorts of things. So this kind of hysteria can really take off. You can take stories or misreported, completely false, and really cause social hysteria and reactions. And the way the world works nowadays with such rapid mass communication, a false story can take off and go around the world and go viral within minutes, even when it's not true, and it can cause a lot of damage socially. I tend to believe that a lot of these things are manufactured, but whether they're organic or whether they're manufactured doesn't really matter. They still have the same effect, and I think it's really unfortunate that we're there as a global society right now. That the stability of our social environments is so fragile, and there's so many triggers that can just set things off. I think that's unfortunate. I think, we used to have pretty thick skin. We used to have a good sense of humor. We used to have a real sense of identity. Everybody could take a joke. The world used to seem socially a lot more stable. It may not have been economically stable. It may not have been a lot of things stable, but socially it seemed like it was a lot more stable. In other words, just our basic social discourse seemed to level off at a certain point. There seemed to be a lot of stability in that, but once again, it's not stable. And like I said earlier, with communication the way it is, it's easy for a story, whether true or false, to just go viral within a matter of minutes, and everybody has an opinion on it, and there's a lot of fighting over it. Lines are drawn in the sand. And this happens so rapidly before anybody even really realizes, is the story real, and what's the real story? What's really happening? Just like in this case. So that's unfortunate.
I want to read what happened here because a lot of Canadians are upset by this, all right? We have a Liberal Prime Minister in Justin Trudeau who is taking a lot of flack over the last 6-8 months. It started really when he ended up paying a known ISIS terrorist who was Canadian who came back and wanted to be a good little Canadian again, $10 million as saying sorry that you were tortured at Guantanamo Bay for killing an American soldier. And it was a little ridiculous. A lot of Canadians really took offense to that. And you can imagine the protests here with people holding up signs saying, I'm upset, I'm not happy, because that's the way Canadians do things. Nonetheless, well, unless it's a hockey riot, then that's the only time we get really pissed off here is during, hockey playoffs. But they trot out this, and this is where I don't know who to feel sorry for. I'm upset that this young lady, or this very young child, can't even call her a lady, she's only 11, this young child goes and creates this story. The media, the police have not released why she made up this story. Was she told to make up this story from family or friends, or maybe she was getting bullied at school and wanted attention? We don't know that as of yet. But the family came out and read this statement. They said, "We are deeply sorry for the pain and anger that our family has caused in the past several days. When our young daughter told the school that she was attacked by a stranger, the school reacted with compassion and support, as did the police. When we arrived at the school on Friday, we were informed what happened and assumed it to be true, just like everyone else. We only went public because we were horrified that there was such a perpetrator who may try to harm someone else. This has been a very painful experience for our family. We want to thank everyone who has shown us support at this difficult time. Again, we are deeply sorry for this, and we want to express our sincere apologies to every Canadian. We look forward to closing this difficult chapter and providing support to our children." So here we have the family saying, we want to do a press conference at the school, we want to trot out our daughter, and we want to say what bad Canadians you are for attacking a young little girl at 11 years old with a pair of scissors to cut her hijab off. You're prejudiced, that is sinful, and it shouldn't be done. And everybody jumped on it. The police obviously are going to jump on it because of the fact that it's a child. Doesn't matter religion, it's a child. But the way the government officials jumped on it, it was a little ridiculous, because now they have to come out and talk about, that it was a fake story. The Prime Minister has spun this saying, Canada is a land for everybody. All right. And he says, even though this was a fake story, this type of thing is happening, and we must stand against hate, racism, bigotry, all sorts of stuff. And that's great that he says those words, but they're hollow, in my opinion, when you have this coming off an 11-year-old who made up a story. And who told that 11-year-old to make up that story? That's where the danger is for me. From especially the unicorn crowd is going to go absolutely haywire over this.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by the unicorn crowd, per se?
The liberals. The liberal crowd who is very accepting of everything.
Well, what was your question to me? I'm sorry, I didn't lock it in. I was locked in on your unicorn statement.
Well, there's just a lot that needs to be taken into consideration here. Who taught this girl to say something like this? Was it her family? Her family had come out and stated, they asked the media and they asked the school, we want to have a press conference here to put our daughter in front of cameras, and reporters to tell the public what happened. They trotted their child out like a martyr, and it was all false.
Yeah, I think, we could speculate. You asked the question, who put her up to this? If anyone did, or was this some invention of her own imagination? So until we know, we just don't know. So we're left to speculate. Why would such a fantastic story with such weight behind it be made up? Although at this point we know that it was made up. We just don't know if it was made up originally by her own imagination, or if she was compelled to tell the story by someone else. But nevertheless, because of the life that it's taken on of its own, now you've got a mixture of things to deal with. One is, and in my opinion, I agree with you with the hollow aspect of it. I would go so far as to even say it's a little bit insulting. It's like the entire country is getting a big lecture about Islamophobia as a result of an incident that never really happened. I would reverse that with my cynical view, and I would say, it's reverse Islamophobia. In other words, what are you afraid of? It's an incident that didn't happen. So what are we really afraid of? Are we afraid that we're going to be judged for Islamophobia, which I don't like that term anyway, but is that what we're afraid of? Are we phobic of being phobic? You know, are we afraid that we're going to be seen as racist and non-tolerant of other people's religion, et cetera, et cetera? It's an overreaction, and I don't think it was a responsible one, especially from Trudeau. I don't think it was a responsible reaction. I don't think it was measured, and in a way, I find it, I'm not even Canadian, but, you know, I still find it very insulting, because this is the kind of thing that's going on all across the world right now, is that, you know, any little thing that you do, you can be labeled with a negative label. You know, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're, you know, this phobic, that phobic. You know, that's a real slippery slope that we've gotten into. And this speaks to what I was talking about earlier about having a lot of social instability, because we're afraid we might insult somebody or this or that. Now, in the event that a grown man, no matter what race he was, or anything else, actually did go up to a little girl with a pair of scissors and cut off her sweater or hijab or anything else off of her, that would be alarming and dangerous and should be addressed. But even in that instance, let's hypothesize, and this is what I try to do. This is the way I approach a lot of these things. Let's play out the scenario that this really was a racist individual. Let's first assume that this incident would have really happened, and let's say that this was a racist individual. And Islam is not a race anyway, but let's just assume that he had a prejudice against Islam and Muslims, and he saw this little girl wearing a hijab, and he approached her, and he cut off the hijab, as the story goes, although we know it's false. But let's just assume all that were real. The way I would break that down is that the nation does not need to be addressed and lectured about Islamophobia over an isolated incident. You've got one crazy guy with a pair of scissors who did a bad thing. And even if he was a bigot and racist and all these other things, sure, but that's him. That's not the nation. Discipline him, punish him, address him. Of course, it's a false story, but again, assuming it were real, deal with him. It doesn't mean that you have a global problem of Islamophobia. That's not to say that we don't, but they're two different issues. And we do, lately, what's been happening in society a lot with a lot of different social issues, whether it be race relations, religious relations, anything social, any pocket of society, we've really gotten very thin-skinned and very reactive. People are very, very reactive, and we tend as a society now to conflate a lot of issues together. And I think that's a very slippery slope, and it's becoming very, very dangerous, because what it creates is this inertia of thinking, and it leaves the door open to brainwash and condition people. And I don't think it's right. We can use this one incident that you brought to the table tonight and shine a light on that and just show that we had an incident that never really happened. We had a public reaction to that, and then we have the Prime Minister coming out and telling the country that we have a problem with Islamophobia based on a reaction from an incident that did not happen. And that's a big domino effect. You see what I'm saying? It's a huge domino effect because of the climate of instability in our social resolve right now. And so I personally tend to get very upset at a lot of this PC stuff, political correct stuff. And this, it doesn't mean that I'm not a compassionate person. It doesn't mean that I'm not a tolerant person. It doesn't mean that I carry hate for anyone in my heart or in my mind. But when we're that sensitive and that reactive, and we start generalizing and conflating and everything, it becomes this huge slippery slope where it's a no-win for anyone. Nobody wins in this environment. And I think it's up to people like Trudeau and other leaders to be very measured and responsible about how you react to things. That's part of the criticism that Trump gets. Trump gets a lot of criticism because he's thin-skinned and he reacts to a lot of things. He overreacts, and he appears undiplomatic and very reactive, and people don't like that. People tend to like their leaders to be very diplomatic, very tactful, very artful with their words, very disciplined, very measured, and reserved. They don't like them to go out and be knee-jerk reactive and sensitive and thin-skinned and and jelly-livered. People don't like that. And I think in this case that you're describing, it really is a good example of how the reactive mentality of what we have in our society today can create a very bad tinderbox. It can make the world a dangerous place, and I don't like it. I think it's something we really need to start thinking about, get a handle on.
And I realize it is a delicate situation and a delicate topic for a lot of people, but I mean, let's face it, the term racism, as ugly as it is, Jamie, has become a popular metaphor to throw out to anybody who has a contradicting opinion or just simply would like some specific questions answered, even though they're not taking shots at the people who are of different color or of different sexual orientation. I remember a couple of good friends of mine I worked with in radio on my personal Facebook profile when I was questioning when Canada was allowing all the Syrian refugees in. I specifically stated I have no problem with these Syrian refugees coming over. But I do have a problem with the fact that we as Canada are taking them, while the top 5 Muslim nations, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, and I believe there was one more, and I apologize, I forget, had closed their borders to Syrian refugees. So why are we flying people that far away from home, to come to Canada on our tax dollar? That didn't make sense to me, especially, during that time. And I got called all sorts of names. And I'm probably the least racist person that I know. And I realize everybody says that. But it seems like if you ask questions, if you ask a tough question regarding it, all of a sudden, that racist card is played, and it's thrown at your face, and now you're tagged with it, almost like someone who's accused of pedophilia, but who's never done anything of the sort. The court proves that they've never done anything from the sort, but they have to wear the scarlet letter because the public has already convicted them.
Right. Well, that goes to what I was saying earlier. It goes to the idea, in my opinion, that we're not allowed to ask discriminating questions without making it look as if we're discriminating against someone. It just seems to me that we should be able to ask pointed questions and fundamental questions when things come into question without being politically ridiculed for it. I think that was a legitimate question that you asked. Not that I would have used the language that the U.S. president used last week when he used the S-hole word to describe some of these countries, but fundamentally he was correct. And the question behind the question that he was asking was a very legitimate question. And it kind of is very similar to the question that you just posed, that you had posed, which is the question that was on the table in an immigration discussion. Basically, the question that Trump was asking is, if you look at the ratio of people, of immigrants that we approve, okay, to legally immigrate, we're not even talking about illegal immigration at this point. We're talking about legal immigration into the U.S. The question he was asking was, why do we allow so many immigrants legally through our legal process per year to come into the U.S. from these countries that these people are poorly educated, not healthy, high crime rates? In other words, assholes in his descriptive, but more accurately from not thriving communities. In other words, these are people that are going to need help and may not, especially in the short term, lend a lot to our country. In other words, they're not going to be viable additions to our country in the short term. Now, that's not to discriminate against that particular individual, right? And it's important to break things down the way we are right now, because these are the kind of discussions we're not allowed to have without being labeled, right? But my point is that we're talking about people who are in the short term not going to be viable per se additions to our community. Does that mean that we shouldn't offer charity to these people? Of course we should. We're a charitable nation, and this nation, the United States, was built and founded on immigrants. We can all acknowledge and agree to that. However, it's also a legitimate question to say, why do we allow tens of thousands of immigrants legally to come to the U.S. per year from these nations, and we only allow a few hundred from the nations where people are higher educated, more professional, they're healthier, they speak different languages. In other words, they are more of a contributor to our society. And it's not to discriminate personally against a person from this nation or a person from that nation. The larger question, and it's valid, in my opinion, it was a valid question. Why are we allowing so many people from these underdeveloped areas to come here when there are just as many people from these other places which are developed? To me, it just seemed like a very fair question. Why is the table not balanced? And so he asked the question in a very crude way, and he used language apparently that comes across in a very crude way. And we may not use that if we were in the position of being a president or a diplomat or whatever. We may not use that colorful language. But then again, sitting around our kitchen table, if we were being honest with ourselves and we were having that the same discussion with our friends, we might in fact use that language. So it's not the language really that I find appropriate, but I do find the question to be very appropriate. But you're not going to be able to ask that question in this social climate without being labeled a racist, when really the question really, even the S-hole comment, really had nothing to do with race, because it had nothing to do with the people per se. It had to do with the areas they were coming from. And all of a sudden, though, in today's social climate, you get swept away with a broad brush of racism. And it's very, very easy to talk about anything these days in an open and honest way. Even if you're wrong, even if your position ultimately bears out to be wrong, it doesn't matter. You're not allowed to discuss anything without tiptoeing around things, without the risk of violating some microaggression or some social standard, some new politically correct standard that's out there. And to me, that's a form, in my opinion, that's a form of fascism. That's a form of slavery. That's a form of of when you can't have open speech and free speech and colorful speech and even speech, to be honest with you, that may offend some people. When you can't do that, you're not truly free. You know, I think sometimes we need to be afforded the freedom to learn from each other and learn from mistakes and learn from those kind of things. I think there's way, way more damage in clamping down on all this stuff in such a PC way. And I think in the long run, it's going to prove to cause way, way more damage than it will do good. And so I'm probably fired up about these things, but you know, I see a big, huge, slippery slope with all of this stuff, and I don't necessarily know the answer, but I do see the writing on the wall, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Well, you went a little politically correct on there because we would have allowed the term shithole for tonight.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't know how many networks were on that.
You can say it. Come on. Everybody wants to hear you say it. Just once. Just feed it.
Shithole. There it is. Shithole.
There it is. There it is.
You know, I can't hardly say that word without thinking in sexual terms. Maybe
yeah. Whole different kettle of fish there, my friend. Whole different kettle of fish. Jamie, we only got about 25 seconds left with you tonight because we have a new feature on this program called Thought of the Dave, and it starts in about 20 seconds. Thanks so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight, my friend, as you will next be on February 15th. February 15th is what the calendar says.
The day after Valentine's Day.
Oh, I look forward to talking to you on that day. I will let you go, my friend, but thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight.
Thank you, buddy. It's been good to be with everybody tonight.
All right. Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet. Let's crank up the Bumblefoot. Thought of the Dave happens at this time every single night on this program. How it works is I will ask you guys a question. I'll put it on my Facebook. You'll respond either via Twitter or via my Facebook. So because we were talking with Jamie tonight, it is a very pointed and detailed question. You know, we got into a little bit of disclosure. So I asked a nice, simple question tonight. And that was, describe your best UFO encounter to me. I know what mine is. It's hard to pick a good one. But I would say mine was the landing that happened 150 yards away from me. I loved that experience. I would do almost anything to have that experience once again. So, we put it out to you guys on what happened to you. What was your best experience? I'm going to start off with one from Kevin. Kevin says, my girlfriend at the time and I were taking my daughter for an evening walk, and we ran into a neighbor, stopped and chatted. I was holding my daughter's hand in my left hand, and something caught my attention. I was frozen. There was a gigantic disc, metallic like cobalt blue. If you ever seen the movie RoboCop, you know what I mean. It was bright and coming towards us. Overhead, getting larger at a rate so fast I thought it was falling from the sky. It had a blue streaking glow. It suddenly stabilized, and a sudden flash of light shot across the horizon. It was so blinding and mesmerizing. It was gone faster than it came. All of a sudden, my girlfriend looked at me, paused, looked at our neighbor, then silence, and we agreed to just go home. We all walked together and not a word was spoken. And just for reference, she is married to a doctor who was in med school at the time, no drugs involved, and no alcohol. It's amazing how the drugs and alcohol always have to come into play on those conversations, because when we want to prove ourselves right on this one, we always have to say, no, I wasn't stoned. No, I wasn't 12 beers into, the mix, whatever you want to say, drinking Dad's bottle of Aqua Velva, whatever you want. All right? But that's a great experience. Tanya said, I was 10 years old over my house. I ended up losing 4 hours. Kevin's girlfriend eventually married a Dr. Joe. Eventually. Dumped him, I guess. Tanya Butler says, I was at my grandparents' house when one night me and some other family members saw a triangle-shaped UFO hovering over us. I was really young, so I don't remember the details very much or what happened after that. I just remembered the shape of it coming from behind the trees and how strangely quiet it was. I've seen 2 black triangles. One was massive. This thing was huge. I bet you if you laid it on the ground, it would have probably stretched for close to 50 miles. That's how big it was. 2 of us saw it. And then another black triangle I had hovering over my house. 3 of us actually watched that thing disappear. It was like a door opened up in the sky. And it was a clear sky that night. Not a cloud in it. And it was like a door opened up in the sky. And you could see the front end starting to disappear as it entered this door. And then slowly the middle disappeared. And it was all like sequential. It was all happening at once until poof, it was gone. It was absolutely amazing. Silent as well. All right. Heather, I love this one from Heather. Heather states, the best one? None. Well, not that I know of. Wendy writes, when I was a child, very young, I used to hear humming sounds outside my bedroom window. 2nd floor, it scared me. And I always put the curtains or pulled the curtains because I felt something would be looking at me. Had recurrent nightmares of a T-Rex looking in my window. Anyways, my parents always said the humming was nothing, even though I had dreams of 3 beings coming by my bedside, and some of them blue. Light coming through my curtains. The humming was low, and it vacillated. Is that a word? I don't know. I'll have to check the dictionary on that one. When I heard it in Close Encounters by Spielberg, I thought, how did he know? I always wonder how many people got confirmation of their own experiences from watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind or a movie like Fire in the Sky. More so Close Encounters because of the way that happened. It just seems so real, doesn't it? From the SOR Veterans Group in the Space Travelers Club, Mike says, I was on the front porch one night a few years ago. I had a cap on and happened to look straight up. There was a UFO gliding past, right above me, north to south. It didn't make a sound. It was at an altitude of about 200 feet. If I had not looked up, I might not have seen it. It didn't scare me, but I was shocked to see it. I was an elliptical shape and flat on the bottom. Or it was, not he. It was elliptical shape and flat on the bottom. Mike, I thought you were describing your body there for a second. But apparently not. You were describing the UFO. The bottom was tan-colored with a green X. It had a light bar that was built side to side like a series of larger cubes in a line. I walked to the sidewalk and watched it for 3 or 4 minutes. It moved slowly. If it had been a terrestrial craft, it would have fallen from the sky. I saw it about 5 more times at higher altitudes over a period of several weeks. I wonder if that was meant for you specifically to see. Did any of your neighbors see it as well? That would make me interested. All right, let's continue on here with your comments on today's Thought of the Day. Keith states, I once had my wife sling perfectly baked potatoes at my head. They were unidentified and definitely flying. Really? Baked potatoes, Keith? He goes on to say they were in and when they exploded against the wall. or they were ID'd when they were exploded against the wall. 30 years later, still married, my humor still gets me in trouble. That is hilarious. Watch out for baked potatoes from Keith Bradley's wife in the sky. All right, Gloria from the Veterans Room says, Ronnie, my daughter, was 4 months old. She is now 21. And I had just put her to bed in her nursery. I sat in the rocker in the darkened room and looked out the large window facing north. I saw a single red light moving south in the sky. I watched it, thinking that it should have a green or white light if it was an airplane. As I watched, it suddenly exploded, not like a bomb, but like a giant red fireworks display. It was pretty, but I jumped up, scared to death, because it almost was like it was right above us. I was afraid for my baby. I watched it as it suddenly came back together into a single red light and continued flying south. I ran out of the nursery, through the living room, out the front door, which faced south. It took me at most 5 seconds to run out that door. I looked up, and there was no single red light to be seen. The sky was clear that night, and stars could be seen. Nothing. Shaking, I went back inside and sat with the baby until Rod came home from work at midnight. The apartments we lived in back then are just about half a mile outside the main gate of Barksdale Air Force Base. No, I did not report the sighting. Who would have believed me? And I think that is a great point. Why report it if you aren't sure you're going to be believed? I've had that happen too. I don't blame anybody for holding on to their stories, not with what I've learned since I've been doing this show. Yes, I'm public about my stories with you, but in the end, you do have to wonder. You do have to wonder, would somebody have taken her seriously? What would have been done? Especially living that close to an Air Force base. And we got time for one more here. One more. We got Catherine's story here. Catherine says, we're going to sound romantic here. It all began when I was 4 years old. I'm kidding. It all began when I was 4 years old. I was in Alaska during Halloween of 1979. A massive ship was over my house, and I grabbed onto my mother and, look, a flying saucer, more bulky, but I didn't know what else to call it. It had lights going off and more, but my mother just ignored me, and we went. This was just the beginning of my personal journey, and I didn't see that craft again until recently, last year, when I found an old documentary from the early 1980s talking about it. When they showed their drawings, a panic attack set in, and at this point, I felt vindicated. There was at least one more incident in Alaska before my father was retired from the military and we moved out here. But for now, that is the most incredible one of detail I have ever seen up close. And that's really the story. We're all trying to figure out what these craft are, yet it's amazing, outside of the triangles, how they look so different to everybody. Is it our imaginations? Is it the way we are seeing it personally? There are questions that need to be asked. And now, if you're one of the believers in the secret space program, you have to sit there and wonder whether or not they're one of our own. Could be. We just don't know. We don't know, people on Periscope. We don't know. So anyways, that is the thought of the Dave, brought to you by me and our great listeners who follow up on Facebook, posting their stories to bring to you on a nightly basis. If you listen in the background, we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking. A little bit of Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. We want to say thank you to Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet News, coming into the show for the first 2 hours, 45 minutes, till the thought of the Dave. Jamie joins us the third Thursday of every month. His next appearance will be Thursday, February 15th. We also want to say thank you to all of you for participating in this show tonight. We'll get to that in a moment. Tomorrow night on the program, we are opening up the lines. 3 hours of open lines tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Bring your topics. Call in, or just post them in the chat rooms, or on Twitter, or on Periscope. Hi, guys. And we will get to them on there as well. It's going to be a fun show indeed. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your experiences, whatever you want to talk about. We'll do it tomorrow night. Once again, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget, if you haven't already and you have the opportunity and the ability to do so, we do have a GoFundMe account going on right now. GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. We're trying to build a brand new studio here, and we are going to do that very, very well. Once we get the new studio, we can start looking towards terrestrial radio. It's going to be a great one indeed. So tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. That's our show, where we're going to open up the lines. Our GoFundMe, GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. Say thank you to everybody on Twitter, in the chat rooms, on Spreaker, on Facebook, and you in Periscope land. Thank you so much for making this a great show. We'll do it all again tomorrow night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. Good night.